I'm Ryan Henderson.
I'm Sarah Selecky.
And this is the Three Vows podcast.
This is the Three Vows podcast.
I'm excited for you to meet Ryan and Sarah today because we were talking about vows when I visited them about a month ago. And we're talking specifically about the vow of chastity, which I've turned into the vow of devotion. And it's interesting because most people, like when they hear the word chastity, they have an immediate reaction. And it's because they're actually thinking of the word celibacy. And no one really wants to be celibate nowadays. But chastity is actually a vow of devotion. Marriage vows are actually a chastity vow. It is a promise to be more devoted to one person than to everybody else. And so I'm super excited for you to meet Ryan and Sarah because they have taken their marriage vows super seriously. And you're going to hear why and how it's changed their life. So welcome, Ryan. Welcome, Sarah.
Hi, Douglas.
Hi, Douglas. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's nice to be here.
Yeah, before we start, just tell the audience a little bit about yourselves. Like where you are, the work you do in the world.
Sure.
We're
in a part of Ontario called Prince Edward County, which is also Haudenosaunee territory and Anishinaabe and Wendat land. And we met when we were in Toronto about almost 10 years ago now. I've been a writer. I am a writer. I'm an author. And Ryan and I met when I was working as a temp and trying to write my first book. And now we live in the country and run an online writing school. And What did you add, Ryan?
I was an outdoor educator when I met Sarah. And then I saw that Sarah was starting up her creative writing school, and I would come home after work and help her out as best I could. And now I'm involved in that. We're both involved in that full time. That's our job.
And we get to live outside of the city now because everything we do is online.
Yeah, as long as we have Wi-Fi, we're able to travel and move around. So it's great.
Tell people about your writing school.
It's called the Sarah Selecky Writing School. Just call it what it is, I guess. The writing school has a variety of online creative writing programs that really teach writers the skill and technique and craft of creative writing, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, with an added piece of like positive psychology and mindset and mindfulness, a state of mind, sort of that light trance that writers can go into that brings about the flow state in their work. So it teaches craft alongside that state of mind, that creative, curious, mindful state of mind that really makes your writing come alive. We've been running it for about 15 years.
Yeah, at least 15.
Yeah.
I mean, you were doing it by yourself in your living room prior to even meeting me. But yeah, 15 years with seriousness, I think.
Yeah.
You can find it at sarahselecky.com. Sorry, sarahseleckywritingschool.com. Or both, actually. We'll get you there.
Yeah, we love it.
Yeah, and it's international online.
Yeah, it's interesting because writing is an act of creation. And what we're going to be talking about today is the writing of your wedding vows or your marriage vows.
I like that. I like that you drew that connection. It's so true. The words matter.
They do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did the idea of writing your own marriage vows come from the fact that you're a writer?
Honestly, it wasn't an option not to write my own. So probably.
Yeah.
What about you?
We had many discussions before we got married about the institution of marriage and what marriage means and what is housed in the institution of marriage and how it is often problematic and some of the wording is a bit strange for what we intend. So yeah, I don't think it was ever an option to not be involved in writing our vows. We looked at a bunch of different ceremonies and kind of thought, do we just want these ones? This one, this one's written. It would be way easier if we just kind of grabbed one of these ones, but didn't quite capture what we wanted to do and what we were wanting to do with marriage in particular.
Yeah, I guess we wanted to create our own. We were creating our own relationship. It's a creative act. Our relationship was creative. We wanted our marriage to be what we wanted it to be. So we were going to set up, the manifesto of our relationship and our dynamic and who we would be to each other and with each other in life. So why would we use a template? It wouldn't be boilerplate. I couldn't do that. No.
Yeah, nor could I.
Well, I want to pull out and actually leave it for later because I have questions before that. But your wedding vows were an act of real intention. They're on some level like a constitution for your marriage. And you intended the vows to be something that you lived into.
Yep.
Yes, absolutely.
A declaration of interdependence.
That's great. I like that.
Because I know a lot of people who write their vows, right? But I've never met anyone who still refers to the vows. So I'm going to hold that back for a second. But let's talk about at the point of when you were decided to get married. Now, one of you, I think, didn't even want to get married or had no intention to ever get married. Is that right?
I think it was both of us. I think
Yeah.
you more than me. I mean, we had kind of hit upon this at the same time, coincidentally, because we didn't even know each other at the time, but had been through some serious monogamous long-term relationships, both of us, thinking that that's marriage. So we'll just go to the next step and we'll just move this to what everybody else does, which is marriage.
Right. We were both engaged previously.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
In whatever way. I mean, we both had
absolutely
ideas about getting married to previous partners.
Yeah. And I think it was that idea that changed the actual getting marriage of, because as soon as we got to that spot, well, I guess, this is the best you can do. And this is now the next step is we just get married. Both of us, independently and separate from each other, decided, well, then I don't want to get married because that doesn't feel like growth. It doesn't feel like there's possibility in this. It's kind of that you've just lost some agency and just kind of moving through to the next step. So we both went through these relationships, came out of them with an idea of maybe what we didn't want. And then that prompted both of us, again, independently, to come up with a list of what then we do want in terms of a partnership, in terms of relationship, in terms of people we want to hang out with.
Right. And that maybe that's what you remember from our conversation, because when I got to that point, I made my list of like what I would need to be better than like to have a relationship that was better than being single. And I made my list, and then I was like, well, that doesn't exist. So I guess and I had like another version of my life where I would not be married. It wasn't like I don't like marriage, I'm not going to do it, but I was just like, it's not right for me and what I want, because that I've never seen that before in another person. All these qualities and temperament and like all the things that were on my list. And we had done that independently of each other and got to a place where we were like, well, it's either like we're going to set the bar high. And if it's not this, then we're not going to settle, because I think we'd both been through an engagement where we had that feeling one way or another. I remember feeling like, well, I guess this is what people do. Like that phrase kept coming. I was like, I guess this is what it's like. This is how this is it. And I almost did it. And then I was like, wait a second.
That's a choice. You don't have to
do that. It's a choice.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I think that set off.
Ryan, do you have,
No, I was just going to say that set off some intentions of how then we do want to be in relationship, and then we found each other. And then I guess years later decided that we wanted to do that next step that we didn't want to do prior in different relationships.
Yeah. So that was very intentional, because we'd already experienced the thought of making that decision without the intention, and had both decided that wasn't it. So then it became a project. It became like a creative, like, what's the mission? What's the vision? What is this about? What is this for? And it enlivened the process, writing our vows and thinking through what we were actually going to promise to do and how. And we really paid attention to each word and every word. It was very enlivening. It was like a focus for a long time. It was a study. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
I want to get to that, but I have one question just before that, which is, I mean, you're talking about, seems like 3 different things, like being single, being in a relationship, and then the third thing, which is marriage. Sarah, you originally distinguished, well, if I can't find this in a relationship, I just want to be single. But when you got into a relationship, sounds like there's still a qualitative step between being in a lifelong relationship and then also deciding to get married.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we had already done all the things that married people typically do, which is together. We shared finances, we bought a house together, we
were kind of working-ish together. You still had your other job, but we were doing all that. So yeah, it's true. I think this is an interesting question. What is the word? I mean, there is a separate entity that's different than being in relationship, because it's a project that you're building. You're growing something together that is you and not you. I mean, neither one of us were willing to give up agency in the marriage, like not like compromise, never up as one of the one of the pieces. Like it shifts the whole paradigm to be in a marriage for us.
Yeah, I think so. And I think also you're just talking about the different layers of that. And, single versus relationship, I think is an obvious one. And then relationship versus marriage is different. If the relationship is just the two of us, then the marriage feels like it's all of us. Like it's our whole community. It's the people we surround ourselves with and the people that we want to become. I don't know, cements it in a different way. Although cement's not the word I even want to use because that's rigid. It just, there's maybe it expands it, or like an infinity, like an electron wants to hang out in this spot until it finds a different thing and it'll get pulled that way. So maybe it's an electron force. I don't know.
It's cool to talk about it. Yeah. It is like it feels like it's more than a relationship. It's bigger than a relationship between two people. But that doesn't mean that like we marry our community. It's not like the community is like, like again, it's not about the compromise piece, which I do hear a lot in marriage. Like the key to a good marriage is compromise. But I think more what we were promising is that any challenge we face, anything that we face in the marriage, because it's a marriage and because of that promise, which is an experiment, right? It's like it's a promise. It's not a lock and a key.
An intention.
It's an intention, and because of that promise, we choose to get bigger, to encompass more options and opportunities, like expand our brain, expand our command. Like it's more expansive.
Yeah. The marriage feels more like a direction. Like in relationship, we can be these two people doing the things that one does in relationship. And then with a marriage and with our vows as like a compass rose or like a North Star that will kind of say, while you're being in relationship, you can keep these in mind and that might direct you this way or that way. In various instances.
Yeah, it's about more than the relationship because it's a marriage for us. Yeah.
I like that we're both nodding. You're like, oh, that's pretty good. Yeah.
It's cool. It's cool insight. Thanks for thanks for that. Yeah.
Well, it seems to me like, a lot of people enter the idea of relationship or wedding as it fulfills me or I'm happier in relationship than I am single. What you're pointing to is something larger, which is this idea that there's a project or a mission involved, that you're not only looking at each other, but you're looking forward together. Talk about this whole idea of your marriage being a project.
It is. It starts with I think the vows we made and the promises we made to each other, where because we're two individuals trying to come up with like the manifesto, as you mentioned before, or the mission statement of what we're trying to do together. And it's tricky because two individuals have different needs and different desires and different wants and approach life in different ways. And so to find the direction that works for both of those people in their individuality to kind of move in that space is, for us at least, was a very important part of how we do that.
Yeah, it's kind of like we had to come up with promises and vows and we would discuss them that were a match for what we both wanted in our lives together and our vision of the future together as individuals. So it was like big picturing, like chunking like what connects what you want and what connects what I want. And then going up to find a promise that encompasses both. And I don't know that when we wrote the vows, I don't think that I was thinking about, like, I don't think I understood how it was connected to community and connected to how we were in the world. Like, I don't think that was conscious. But what ended up happening, if we live by the promises that encompass what Ryan individually needs and what I individually need and want, and we live in a way that encompasses both, it ends up being more connective. So it ends up we end up expanding, and seeing other people with more expansion as well, the people around us.
Yeah, I don't think we intended the greater effects of the vows. I think when we wrote the vows, it was more just for us, just to say, this is what we want. This is, this would be great for us. And then it did kind of guide what we do, who we hang out with, the choices we make, where we live, how we live, all the different aspects of living. With this as the focal point of us doing it together, then, we kind of navigate our way through with that as our direction head.
Yeah, I guess the project part of it started just with us, as you say, and then it kind of patterned the way we think and behave, which of course is just going to ripple out because it's how you are.
Yeah, both it patterned how we behave, and I think we created it because of the patterns we already had as well. Like, I think that because not everybody does this, not everyone writes with intention what they want to do as a couple. I think that came from somewhere. I don't think that was
we were all
we were destined to make vows at some point.
Right. Maybe so.
I think the critical part for me, and what's so beautiful and why I wanted to talk to you about this, it was not only your intention when you got married. How long have you been married?
This will be our 16th.
This is 16, yeah.
Okay. But your wedding vows are in your bedroom. They're up on the wall. There's something that you can see and refer to every single day. And so it is not only something that you cared about back then, it's something that you continue to care about. And I think that is so, like, I would guess that most people cannot remember their wedding vows.
The generic ones that come with a sermon.
Yeah, and you
like,
watch them on,
you see it on TV.
Yeah, you see it on TV. And no, that, to have them printed out and put, we didn't come up with that idea. That was, so at our wedding, I have to give credit for that. At our wedding, we asked our friends and family to write down on little pieces of paper and save for us advice that they had for us. And we opened one on the first day of every month after, however many months after that we had pieces of paper. And the very first one that we opened on our first month after being married was from my friend who said, print your wedding vows out and put them up where you can see them every day. So we just did.
And it was great. Sarah did it with watercolor. So she wrote it all out on this massive sheet of paper in watercolor.
Yeah.
We framed it.
Yeah, we framed it. I had it framed, and it was like our first anniversary gift, and we put it up. And I didn't know how much, that was a great surprise. I didn't know how much I would love it until we did it. And then just I love our vows.
Yeah, me too. And like you said, many people don't remember theirs probably, but we certainly do.
They hold up.
They hold up. We look at them every day. Sometimes you wake up and you can just focus on one word even, or you just read a sentence and you're like, oh yeah, that's a good sentence to read right now, given what we're talking about, or given the decision we're making right now.
I guess they're like affirmations.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. You put a little an affirmation on a sticky note in the mirror.
You can
on a
do
Post-it
it.
note.
You're beautiful.
Yeah. It's kind of like that. So we see them. So they're in there. Sometimes I'll just I'll glance at it, or I'll see it out of the corner of my eye. And it's it wants me to see it. There's something in our vows that wants me to look at it at that moment. And then I turn and see it. Oh, that one. Right. Okay. Right. And it's kind of that. It's part of the intention that we together, that we put into writing those words, is still in the words. That's how writing works.
Yeah.
So it's transmitting the intention that we had when we wrote it down, and it's still a transmission. It's still active.
Oh, it reminds me of the devotional practice, Lectio Divina. Do you know of that?
Mm-mm.
No.
But it's a spiritual practice where you devote yourself to a text and really live in contemplation of that text. And it seems like, looking at individual words or sentences and having them call to you is a practice of Lectio Divina.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It definitely shapes our day and shapes our relationship, even subtly, even in ways we don't know and are not aware of, because we do read it every day. And it's a text that you'll see all the time. And the same as you mentioned with affirmations that you put on your mirror when you're getting ready in the morning, you'd see that and you'd be like, oh yeah, I am a good person, or I do want to be that person. Or I want to, do better in this way.
Yeah. I'm just thinking, now that you said that, Douglas, I'm thinking about the old samplers in the prairie time, Little House on the Prairie time days of the households would make their embroidery of, I don't know, the 10 Commandments, and then hang them up where all can see. And it's kind of like that, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But our own 10 Commandments.
But there are our own 10 Commandments. I don't know how many there are. Do you know how many there are?
I don't.
I don't know what they are.
I've never counted them.
And they're not commandments, but yeah, similar. Yeah.
Well, are you ready to share them?
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Sure.
We brought them off the wall.
We're looking at them over here. Sure.
I promise to love you as the whole and separate universe that you are.
To approach the obstacles in our life as opportunities for growth.
to speak with you honestly and with integrity,
to support you as you explore your deep self,
to respect your solitude,
to extend myself in order to nurture your spiritual growth,
to remember that you are not responsible for my happiness,
to let go of my attachments and experience what connects us in each moment.
to let go of my expectations and open myself to love.
I promise to support you in these ways as long as we both shall live.
Still holds up, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It was interesting creating them too. We were in the midst of wedding planning and wanted to focus on this. And even despite all the stuff that was going around when one is planning a wedding, we took an entire day. We just went to a local park and we brought some lunch and we just hashed it out. And we just talked about the whole thing.
I had all my
everything that we wanted to
paperwork,
do.
all my notes. I had templates like from other kinds of ceremonies, from different backgrounds and different ideologies, and all of our notes and our pens and paper. I remember it was like we were like really working because it was like we had to get it down to what we had to get it down to. And we both took a nap. We was so tired. We just took a nap. We like slept on it right there in the park because it was just like really getting intense at one point.
Yeah. And a lot of it was taken from a Buddhist ceremony. I forget.
Yeah.
Is it a wedding ceremony?
I think there was a Buddhist wedding ceremony that we brought some of it. But then a lot of it we made up. Like I remember I definitely wanted it in there to remember that you're not responsible for my happiness. That we both were like really into that one. I don't know if that was from the Buddhist ceremony.
I don't know if it was. It's been so long that I don't remember which one came from where. But
yeah.
Can I ask you to read it again? Maybe take the part you did not read, so reverse the parts.
Sure.
Oh, okay.
I promise to love you as the whole and separate universe that you are.
To approach the obstacles in our life as opportunities for growth.
To speak with you honestly and with integrity.
To support you as you explore your deep self.
To respect your solitude.
To extend myself in order to nurture your spiritual growth.
To remember that you are not responsible for my happiness.
To let go of my attachments and experience what connects us in each moment.
To let go of my expectations and open myself to love.
I promise to support you in these ways as long as we both shall live.
It's so beautiful. How does it feel just to say them out loud?
Amazing.
Amazing. It's always amazing.
It's always amazing.
It's always a recommitment. And it feels a little like every day. Like, because it is every day. You wake up and you're like, it's not unusual. It's
a nice
it still
reminder.
Holds up. It feels like, yes, that's like, all of those things I'm still excited about.
Yep. I'm excited. It makes me feel excited. It feels amazing.
Yeah. I sometimes want to crack it open again, not change anything that we have there, because I think that is solid for what we are trying to do, but wonder if we've missed anything now, 16 years later, or 18 years later, given how long we've known each other.
What would we add?
Should we add anything? Should we change anything? Not change again, but more add. Is there anything we've missed? It feels like it covers most of the bases. It feels like it covers all the bases, but I wonder if we spent another day just thinking about it, what we'd come up with.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I don't know if we started from scratch and we didn't have these, are those still the vows that we would make now? Would we use the same words? I mean, no, that was us, almost 20 years ago now. We've lived a lot of life. We know a lot of things, but it's still, it's still good.
Still got it.
Still got it. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, as we mentioned before, but depending on the day and depending on what's happening, it really, one of them might jump out at you. Like, the one that just hit me right now is like, let go of attachments and experience what connects us in each moment.
That one's great.
It's great. And it's a great guide. Even if that was just the one, it's kind of a great, guideline to be like, how are we connecting right now? Where are we not? What, what's needed?
And I remember, I don't know if you do, but I remember like that sticky. I remember let go of my attachments, but we didn't know what the end was. We didn't know the words for what if we're going to let go of attachments, what then? Like, if we let go, then what is it? And I do remember really, like, I think maybe waking up from the nap and figuring out how to end that one. I remember that. I remember it that way, but I don't know if that's exactly what happened. But
it's normally how you operate. So that would make sense.
I think we needed to sleep on it to get to, it's just presence, right? Like and this was before I knew who Brene Brown was and like read all the other, like people have talked about it's not new. these concepts are not new concepts of ways to live. Like, it's great. But there is something that I was trying to learn, that this was like aspirational for me at that time, that I understand more now, having practiced it. But at the time, it was hard to find the words for it, because I wanted that, and I wanted that together, but I wasn't sure. Like, I wasn't already living that way. You know what I mean?
And you were as well. Like,
yeah,
this again came from somewhere.
It was intention. Yeah, it was intention. But I think that I've gotten better at it. I think we've gotten better at it, and I think our marriage has helped us evolve that way.
I agree.
I mean, what you're talking about when you're talking about like letting go of attachment is from a Buddhist sense, letting go of your conditioning, your habitual responses, and becoming awake to the now. On some level, these wedding vows are about awakening.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. And the awake to the now is an important part of a continued relationship, I think, because I'm a different person. She's a different person. We're different people daily, but certainly after 16 years, after 18 years, after, decades, people change, things become more important things. But what's happening right now? And can we meet here now, with whatever's happening? I think, and we deliberately added that in because we wanted this to grow with us. And that is a way that it can evolve. Like there's some flex in here, which we talked about how to end it, as long as we both shall live, as long as we both shall love was another option. Like we had some other ideas, but we're just like, no, this is, even if we're not together, these vows will hold up.
Exactly.
That's not obviously the intention, but life, is weird and things happen. But as long as we both shall live made sense, because this is a promise that I can get behind, whether I'm with Sarah or whether I'm not.
Yeah.
Obviously I'm enjoying the with, but
I mean, that was the experiment of it, is like, as you follow these vows, what will happen? We didn't know what will happen, and the intention is that life gets better and better and better together. And it does. And it has.
And it has.
So far, the hypothesis is correct.
All right. So here's the big question, you two. How has living by vow made your marriage different than other marriages?
I think intention is a big one. I wonder if that's different than other marriages. I think a lot of other marriages intend for it to work. Otherwise, why get married? But it does.
It's so complicated.
It is complicated.
It's complicated. It's not a set it and forget it, like, instruction manual. It's not a promise once and then you just like are together and you have to accept everything about the other. It's active. These vows are active. They require us to be engaged in choosing day to day how to be. So there's less autopilot. The intentions started with when we wrote them, but the intention never, like acting on the intention never stopped. I mean, maybe maybe when we were like having periods of really intense work periods, there was like a little bit of blinders on just to get through the day. Here and there over the years, I'm sure it's not like we're like gazing into each other's eyes day to day, every day. But there's a very regular and consistent checking in on our activity in our intention and attention.
Yeah. And I think, I don't know if it's the writing of the vows that did that, or if we live or try to live with integrity, and that is why we made the vows.
Right. That's a good point.
Because there are other ways in our life that we try to live with integrity. This is the way that it manifested in our relationship. And so I don't know if it's the making of the vows that makes our relationship a good one, or if it is being two people living in integrity who have found each other and therefore wrote vows together. That makes it might.
That's really possible. It might not be the vows that did it. It might be whatever it is in our temperament that made us want to write our own vows and live by them. That's the thing that makes our marriage different. Like, but I still think this would be great for I think everybody could. I think vows are great. I think it's like
Me too.
it's like the thing that we know keeps us well. It's like our recipe. We follow our own instruction manual of care for our marriage, and that so we don't let it. It's like taking this is not a good metaphor. I'm thinking like running because it's dynamic, it's organic, it's not a machine, but just like for the purpose of the metaphor, like driving a car with never getting it an oil change, never tending to the tire pressure, never bringing it in, never clean. Like if you just like buy a car and then just drive it and never check in with it and don't take care of it and then expect it to run well. No, it's a poor metaphor. It only goes so far. It only goes so far. But it's a living thing. A marriage is like a living, changing, breathing thing that's like got two living, changing, breathing, universal individuals inside of it. So checking in on it regularly just feels sound. And I think that our checking in on it regularly does probably make a difference.
I think so. And I think the way that I've kind of lost my train of thought of where that was going, but I was back to what I was saying with intention, that we live in a way that's not prescribed to us, or we try to, at least in a way that's not prescribed to us by society. That, marriage means this. And if you're married, you need to have kids. And if you like do all these different things, then that will be the measure of success in society. And we have the vows, I think, are a way that kind of showcase that we're just like, no, let's do this in a way that works for us, in a way that we want to direct our lives, which is intention. I don't know, it's tricky to compare to other relationships as well. I see some that work, some that don't, and to find out what's the particular thing in their relationship that wouldn't be working that I feel is working in ours. So it's a challenging question, I guess, is ultimately what I'm saying.
Yeah, it is a challenging question. I don't know about other relationships, but I do know that like having, any one of these statements, it pops up because if we go on autopilot, the way we're programmed to act and react, any one of these statements is an interruption to that autopilot. Like, I promise to speak with you honestly and with integrity. So if I take that seriously, that means that even though I'm reacting to something, or even though I'm like pissed off about something, or even though I'm like, that's the promise I made. It's the promise I made to myself. It's the promise I made to Ryan. It's the promise I made to our co-creative project. So it's bigger than whatever my reaction is. That kind of that interrupts things that I think, or I guess, and I don't know because I'm not in those other relationships, but my guess is that if uninterrupted in its nascent stage, ways of being can become habits, and then they can become like part of your personality, and then your marriage can sort of become a calcified place for that kind of personality to grow, and then it's harder to soften it and grow together. That's a guess, but I don't know.
Yeah, I would say simply the vows keep us flexible.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, calcified is the opposite.
Yeah.
And I think it's true. And this has a lot of room for growth and a lot of room for flexibility and change.
I agree.
While still maintaining the integrity level that we want.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. My mentor and friend, Tirsi Engelhardt, the primary question she asks is, what is the experience you're committed to having? And it occurs to me that your wedding vows are the experience that you committed to have with each other.
I love that.
Mm-hmm, I like that too.
I love it. It's now I'm thinking with that frame around it. I'm like, oh, maybe we could update. Like maybe we could add another. What experience are you like promising to have? I think maybe something about adventure or wonder or curiosity or something could be added. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that those still hit with the connects in each moment.
Yeah, it's true. That's kind of up for any moment.
And open myself up to love is kind of like opening myself up to wonder. But I think we can add words.
No, I think it's still good. I think we're committed to this. It's a pretty good experience. Yeah.
I think, if it's not clear to the audience, I think the most important thing to all of this, which sounds like on some level it was happenstance with that first little piece of advice you opened, is this document is still alive to you.
Very much.
Yes.
Oh yeah, it sparkles. It's real. It's real, like the Velveteen Rabbit is real, you know?
Yeah, I think part of what makes it real too is that it's in Sarah's handwriting or paint writing. Is it? I guess it's like
Yeah,
'cause
I
you
painted
painted
each
it out,
letter. Yeah.
but that also captures an energy that if we had printed it out on, a printer and just framed those words, they would still probably work in some capacity. But I think the personalized nature of it really brings it to life. It is a living document for that reason also.
Yeah, it's embodied. Yeah.
All right, so here's a question for the two of you. Can you think of a time where these vows helped you make a decision that if you didn't have these vows, you might have made a different decision?
Yeah, there's I guess not a specific example, but almost a daily example where there's a line to respect each other's or to respect your solitude in our vows. And that is one that's more important for Sarah than for me, I think. Sarah being more introverted, me kind of riding the line between introverted and extroverted. I don't need as much solitude as Sarah does. And so on a regular basis, that line does pop into my head because I know that I could just keep going, but Sarah probably needs to take a break. And we let's just stop here. We'll pause. We'll come back to this with fresh eyes. We'll take a nap, do whatever. So that's one that I often find coming up for me in our daily routine. And I remember when we made it that Sarah was like, this is getting in there. This one is just got to be on the page. And I'm like, but how does it hit for both of us? And it does, because that solitude, if Sarah doesn't get it, then it's not going to work. Yeah, we both need that for this relationship to work, actually. So that's one that comes up for me often. Do you have an example?
I think, again, it's not like I don't know that it's a specific, like there was a time at this day of this season of this year where I did this because of this. It's more integrated than that. But one that I utilize actively one is to support you as you explore your deep self, because that's really interesting to me.
Yeah. And what is a deep self? And how does one find it? Yeah.
Where that's feels like an invitation to do new things and try totally new approaches. Like it feels like, because I'm thinking about Ryan. I'm thinking about me supporting Ryan as Ryan explores his deep self. And that's just baffling to me. Like, I love that it's baffling. It's like I have no idea what to do. So I just want to support. So that makes me try new things and think about new things. And like, sometimes just look at him from across the room when he doesn't know that I'm looking at him and think, like, what could I do? What would be supportive as Ryan explores his deep self? So I use that one as kind of like a little mental imagination prompt often that I think that probably just keeps things. I don't know if it changes anything that I've decided to do or not do, but it's one that comes up that's chewy, like I still really love thinking about it. And the other one is just like approaching the obstacles in our life for opportunities for growth. I mean, I utilize that often anytime there's like some kind of chunk. Like I've been using it. Okay, I do actually have a specific. A couple years ago, we purchased a used car that was expensive. That wasn't our plan. It was like it wasn't, we hadn't like put money away for this car, but for various reasons, we needed to purchase a car, and this is the one that we did. And it was hard because it was financially difficult for us to make room for that in our spending plan. And I would like tell myself, okay, this is an obstacle. This is opportunity for growth. How is it an opportunity for growth? So I would use that to like change my thinking and try to call in like the best for both of us when we that could have been a darker, like kind of grumbly time. Yeah. So that's one.
I still grumble a bit about the car.
A little bit.
But it's okay.
But it's an ongoing. It's ongoing. Yeah. Yeah.
I thought of another example too. Again, not specific, but more generic. But that to remember that you are not responsible for my happiness is one that it's a little catchphrase that I can feel myself saying. Mm-hmm. That if I ever get to the point where like, well, if Sarah just did this, then
Mm-hmm.
everything would be all right. And then I'm like, well, then figure out a way that you can do that without Sarah doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And then she's not responsible for your happiness,
Mm-hmm.
figure it out. And then I come up with a solution that will mitigate whatever that thing was. And then it doesn't matter if
Mm-hmm.
Sarah does that thing or not, because I made myself happy with the other choice. I wish I could come up with a specific example right now, but as you mentioned, it's kind of integrated in our day. Like it just kind of is a part of our approach, it seems.
I feel like I've said I use that one often. I feel like I say it out loud, actually, when we're discussing things, we're talking, and I'm like, no, you're not responsible for my happiness. Like, I'm just going to go do this thing. Even if it's like, it could be so silly, but if I want often it's about alone time, probably, actually, come to think of it. It's often about alone time. And then I'll be, no. I need this. I'm going to go take myself for a walk. I'm going to go out into the woods. And you're not responsible for my happiness. I'm going to go do this, because Ryan really is a very considerate person. And sometimes I can slip and think that he is responsible for my happiness because he's really, really good at it. So pulling away, like separating there, being like, no, I can do this. I can make my own happiness now, and I'll see you later. I think I say that sometimes. Yeah,
I think so.
For both of you individually, is there one of the vows that is the most difficult, like is in shadow for you, that you struggle with?
I'm going to say no.
No.
I mentioned the respect your solitude is one that I have no problem respecting. No, it's not a problem respecting your solitude. It's just not needing as much solitude myself. But I think they're all easy and exciting to do.
I guess respect your solitude is the sticky one for me as well, because as you say, you don't need the solitude. But I know that when I leave the house for several hours and I come back and you're like playing loud music and drumming and playing the piano and singing, like there have been nights where I come home a little bit later from dinner with a friend and I just hang outside the door and hear you singing and playing piano.
Yeah.
And like feel so happy. So I feel like that's how I respect your solitude, but you don't ask for it and you don't want it and you don't like it. So it's like kind of doing it despite you. It's for your best interest that that I leave you alone. Because it really is. Because I come home and you're like playing music and like doing all the things that you love to do that you don't do when I'm around, because it makes too much noise, or I don't know why you don't, but
I'm respecting your solitude.
Right.
It's too loud.
Yeah. So I guess I don't know if it's in shadow exactly, but it's definitely one that is interesting. It's not straightforward. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the other one that is not straightforward is also that I will extend myself in order to nurture her spiritual growth is tricky, because spiritual growth is nebulous. It's not a defined thing. It's just like, I think this is making you a better person, and this is something that you're excited to explore. And so just narrowing down what that is, what is the thing that might help one's spiritual growth, is elusive. It's hard to really grasp, because it moves around. What is good for me today might not be good for me tomorrow or 10 years from now, etc. But I'm still excited that is one of the vows that we've put in there, because there's just opportunity. You mentioned adventure earlier, that there's opportunity for adventure in there. You're just like, who knows what's gonna nurture your spiritual growth, and who knows what's gonna make you happy, and like all these places where there is opportunities for adventure and wonder and excitement that is not literally written in the words, but I think is kind of baked into the feeling around them.
Yeah, that one kind of requires us to talk to each other and have experiences together, or do new things so that we can actually uncover what that spiritual growth, what the direction of that spiritual growth might be for each of us.
Mm-hmm.
It's not obvious unless there's space made for it.
Yeah, it allows some wiggle room for evolution
and introspection.
For some, if you need introspection,
and for others, just surprise insights.
It occurs to me that the vows have not only made your marriage better, but it's made you as individuals better.
100%.
100%. Yeah, I agree.
Yep.
Yeah, because it's not just. I mean, it's primarily a vow that I made with Sarah, but it's also a vow that each of us made with ourselves, I think, that we apply in other aspects of our life. Maybe this is our practice ground where we can work on it with someone else who's got similar minded approach to what we're trying to do here. And then it just becomes a habit and you take it out with you into the world. Like speaking with somebody with honesty and integrity is something I think we both try to do and that we do out in the wilds as well.
It's we made these promises to ourselves, or I'll speak in I statements. I made these promises to myself as much as I made it to Ryan and as much as I made it to our marriage. And this way of seeing and being and relating, this way of relating has definitely helped. Like I've just grown from the practice. And it's most intense with your partner. I think that each of these, like, to remember that you're not responsible for my happiness in the person you're married to and wake up next to every morning and live with and travel with and like share all your enterprises and finances with, like, that's intense. I think it's a practice ground, like you said, but it's also like the top practice ground. Like if you can do it here, then where it's like super personal and like so connected to your well-being and your like mental, spiritual, emotional, and physical health is dependent on your part and the conditions that are in your like primary relationship. So if we can do it here, then it's like, oh, well, in the relationships I have with my clients, with my students, with my friends, with my community, then it just becomes part of the pattern of being. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you mentioned earlier, Douglas, talking about the different levels from individual to couple to community. And this, having said these vows in front of our community, I think also extends and maybe opens that door a little bit so that we can continue to practice it with our community as well. We didn't make a vow with those people, but
they didn't make a vow. Yeah,
they were there with us while we made the vow. And
maybe subconsciously something happened where we just like were aware that we were speaking it out loud to them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're saying that basically this is the experience you're committed to having, not only with each other, but with the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. We often talk about being the same person in all situations, which we see lots of people struggle with. And that is the thing that causes a lot of issues for a lot of people. And to be the same person in all situations is a challenge, I think. But as you practice it, it becomes less and less of a challenge.
Yeah.
And more of an exciting thing to be doing.
Yeah. That's how I understand integrity is like entire. It's an integrale is like whole wheat. Like it's like the integrale pasta is the whole wheat pasta. I want to be like the whole me in every relationship and like in every situation. And it's not always happening, but I do see if you don't make that promise or intention, how easy it is to have duplicity inside yourself and in your relationships without it just splits apart that way because our world tends to segment and separate. So that wholeness of being the same person in all situations, expanding to fit different modes, different values, different ways of seeing into your model so that you can be the same person in any situation. That's the experience I'm committed to having. Yeah.
Yeah, with lots of fun.
It reminds me of the mystical phrase, how you do one thing is how you do everything.
Yep. That's it.
Yeah, I think so.
Yep.
Oh, I just like how you practice your marriage.
I was going to say it's amazing that our 20-year-old selves were able to come up with this sort of thing. We weren't 20. We were 30.
We weren't 20. We weren't 20 years old. Nope. That would have been really amazing.
It would have been.
What were you going to say?
Oh, I was just going to say that, like, you know, how you practice with each other is how you live in the world. And that's beautiful. That is the essence of a devotional practice, right? Like when you can see the other person as holy, and you can see the whole world as holy, that's the whole point of the vow.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think so too. It is. It's what gives it its power, I think. It's not just words, it's the undercurrent underneath those words.
I think that coming to that understanding now at this phase of our life is so sweet and special because it's not just that the vows hold up and are still great and still have the power. It's actually like a spell that makes life better and better and better and deeper and deeper and deeper. Like it gets better. It gets better and better as like the layers deepen and complex, like get more complex and more expansive. It's not the same. They're evolving with us. And I didn't know, as I said earlier, like I didn't know when we wrote these vows that it would affect our whole life. I thought it was about the relationship and about the marriage. And like, let's make this a good one. Let's make this good. And let's like set ourselves up for a good foundation and do the personal work in a really fun way with a lot of love and like learn to be better people together, yada, yada, yada. But I didn't understand how interconnected we would be with like the whole picture of life. Like it feels like it's like gotten so much bigger and so much better. And at the same time, Ryan is still mysterious and exciting. Like it's not like now we achieved the level of like understanding each other and now we're going out. It's not like that. It's like this much bigger, more complex journey where we're kind of like practicing these vows, but just like practicing a way of being, I would say, through these vows. And like being so excited about the possibilities that still opens and how many more possibilities there are the more we go.
Yeah, and I often think about the first part of our vows with that, where I promise to love you as a whole and separate universe that you are. You still surprise me as well. I'm just like, how on earth we've been together for so long, and we work together and we live together and we travel together and we do all these things together, and you're still a new separate universe each time. I'm just like, huh, that's interesting. It's fascinating
to
continue to rediscover and to discover you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really fascinating. That's like the excitement when we read the vows. I really felt like, oh yeah, that's exciting. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to wrap up here. It's been super, super fun. I'm just going to give you both the opportunity to have last word, and then I'm going to ask you one last fun question. So who wants to go first with last word?
This has been a really exciting conversation, Douglas. I thank you for asking us about this, because it's something that we do have in our daily lives, but never really discuss the making of, like behind the scenes of the vows. The vows have been existing for us and as part of our relationship for a long time, but to actively sit down, to make the time to actively sit down and talk about each vow and to talk about what it means and why we did it and how it affects us and put those experiences into words has been quite exciting. So thank you for this opportunity.
Yeah, I would add it's been something not that I've taken for granted, because I don't take it for granted. I love it every day. But it's just being able to we haven't spotlighted it with like a witness like this before. It's been private, and it's really exciting to have the different insights that sort of come up in the conversation that I hadn't articulated before, that I hadn't had to put into words before. And it's been really wonderful to think about it in this way with you. So thank you for your questions and for asking us about this. It's been really great.
Yeah, and to add and piggyback on that too, it's just a very exciting project that you're working on to explore this. I'm curious to hear all the other people who are talking about how they do this in their lives.
Me too.
Well, it's funny because I'm so glad that both of you were willing to talk about this private thing publicly, because to me, this is the great work of your life, right? Like you have your writing and you have a writing school, but this feels to me like the great work. It's a great work of art that should be shown. So thank you. All right, last fun question. Think of what is a good metaphor you can use in relationship for writing or for having your own business, or vice versa. What's a good business or writing metaphor for marriage?
Sarah's the writer in our relationship, but I have worked with the school for some time, so I can jump in with a little thing here. The flow state, I think, is kind of the sweet spot in writing. The spot where you're making connections that you didn't realize were there, that it's just flowing out of you freely. You're just like, you lose sense of time. You're in the zone, making magic happen, and lose yourself within that almost. And I think that that's kind of exciting to apply the flow state to marriage as well, where we've kind of put these intentions in the background, and then like maybe the skills that one would need to write, we've put that in there, and then we just kind of just flow with it and see where it takes us and find out what creative thing we can create by doing this. Not really actively, maybe at the time, consciously focused on the vow itself, but just knowing that that's part of what we're doing here is taps into that flow state, I think.
I have one too.
No doubt.
Other than a car. It's like cooking. It's like being in the kitchen and cooking, where you have these ingredients. So you have like celery and a carrot and a bay leaf and some lentils. You have all these pieces. When you create a dish, like when you make what do you make with those things? Like a soup. Although soup is kind of a messy, let's say like something better. A pilaf. You make a pilaf. A beautiful pilaf with like pomegranate seeds and diced carrots, and it's like rainbowy. There's like little preserved lemon bits in it. It's like jeweled and dazzling. The feeling, like the dish that you eat at the end is not the same as the ingredients. It's actually not even just all the ingredients together. It's something different that carries all the different ingredients, plus the like energy of the person who's cooked it and prepared it, plus the conditions of whatever humidity and everything that's around in the kitchen, and the tools that are in the kitchen, and the temperature of the oven, and all those things all come together and make something that is delicious and can be shared and has like a beauty and an aroma and a flavor all its own that can never be boiled down to the bits and pieces, and can never be made without the bits and pieces.
Both of your metaphors talk about the, we started at the very beginning of this as your vows were an act of creation, right? Just like writing is an act of creation. And what occurs to me is we end with your marriage is a continual act of creation. It's creativity manifested into the world. So I'm grateful for the both of you. Thank you. One last time, can you tell people how to find you?
Sure. You can find us at sarahseleckywritingschool.com.
All right. Well, Sarah, Ryan, I'm so grateful. This was so much fun, and this is such a sweet hour with you. I'm grateful just that you're in my life, and that we get to talk about these things, and we get to talk about these things offline too. So thank you for being in my life, and I'll see you again soon.
Thank you, Douglas. I feel the same. Thank you for being in our life.
We love it too.
Yeah, this was great.
Bye.